Welcome to my tutorial for Haunted Castle Revisited for the Switch. This is from the Castlevania Dominus collection. I'm playing this through the Ryujinx emulator. I couldn't get this to work on the Yuzu emulator, which I use most of the time for Switch emulation. But it worked great on the Ryujinx emulator, no problems. Here I'm going to be playing on hard mode. As you will see in the settings, you can go... it's a little confusing to get to the settings, but it does tell you in the beginning how to do it. I couldn't get into settings initially because I was using a Super Nintendo USB controller, SNES style controller, and it doesn't have those extra triggers and all that shit, you know. So I did end up using a controller with a few extra buttons. The 8-bit Do M30 controller is usually pretty good because it has a lot of the extra buttons, and it's a good 2D style, Sega Saturn style controller. You know, it has the best D-pad that I've used for 2D games overall. So it's a great controller. But normal mode took me around 38 minutes, and this hard mode here took me around 54 minutes. Right after beating normal, I beat both of them back to back. I did it in one sitting. Very easy game when it comes to, you know, comparing it to the difficulty of the Castlevania games in the series. You know, Castlevania 3 was the hardest one for me. I've pretty much beaten all the Castlevania games, the 2D ones anyway, not including all of the Metroidvania style entries on the DS and GBA and stuff like that. But, like, you know, the standard 2D linear types of games, I think I've pretty much beat all of them. So Castlevania 3 was by far the hardest for me on the NES. But this is very easy compared to all that, and it's an easier version of the arcade version called Haunted Castle, which was a Castlevania game. It just didn't have the name. It was possibly the first actual Castlevania game, though there was one on MSX as well called Vampire Killer. I'm not sure which one came first. This might have been the first. Either way, it was a very early game in the entry, one of the first entries, if not the first. So it was interesting to see, you know, Castlevania done with arcade graphics. Because remember, when we got Castlevania in the U.S., you know, most of us got it on the NES. So that was limited graphics, but there was a version that looked similar to this. This does look a little bit better for the remake, but the original arcade version looks similar to this. The problem with the original arcade version, it's not really, I mean, it's kind of, I don't really like it, but it has limited continues. I think the arcade version may only give you like 3 continues, so you got to really memorize the whole game, and it did feel a little bit more archaic. I don't know if they fixed up some of the issues that I had with the game, but it's a lot more playable here. I mean, you don't take massive damage when you get hit. On hard, you take the same damage as normal, as far as I can tell. The only thing I noticed on hard is that there's more aggressive attacks. You know, there's more attacks on screen and more enemies on screen, basically, and bosses are more aggressive. And sometimes they add extra minions to the bosses, like the Frankenstein fight, I think, has extra minions, stuff like that. But if you beat normal, you can definitely beat hard. It's going to be a little bit denser and more aggressive, but I had continues set to the default on. You know, it defaults with continues on, which means you have unlimited continues. And you get checkpoints at every new screen, pretty much, meaning that when you die or lose all your lives, you'll start back from the last screen you got to. So it's very forgiving with that. Some screens are longer than others. Usually when you see a background change, that's going to be the next checkpoint. So for this area, I think you have to go through this whole area, and then once you get here, it's a checkpoint at the actual boss. So you're going to see my first death on every new checkpoint that I died at. Now, if I beat several checkpoints in a row without dying, you won't see those deaths because it'll all just, you know, be walking through those areas. But when I did die, it will show, you know, the checkpoints that I did die on. But I'm not going to show any reoccurring deaths on the same checkpoints. It's going to be, you know, fresh deaths only. So the first death of each new checkpoint, pretty much, is how this is edited. So I found that if I get close to her and whip her and jump some of her tail attacks, which is kind of optional, but if you just whip the shit out of her, you'll beat her. But once you get her in this corner, she can't even hit you. So if you can move her back to the corner sooner, you can probably just beat her without taking any damage at that point. It's super easy if you play aggressively. My strategies are not going to be applicable to like a 1cc or a no death run or anything crazy like that. This is just me beating the game and what I did. I pulled some bullshit, so I thought it'd be interesting to detail, you know, some of the bullshit that I pulled. You know, some of the fuckery. You know, the final boss was really the only thing that gave me a challenge on hard mode. Normal mode didn't really have anything that gave me a challenge, really. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't die, but I didn't spend a lot of time on any single part on normal. I beat that, like I said, within 38 minutes, which is pretty quick. So You know, after having a basic idea of the layout for hard mode after beating normal, this only took me like 54 minutes, and most of that time I would say was on the last boss, the last form of the last boss. Most of the time, as far as most of the time spent on like a single part, it might have took me like 15 or 20 minutes to beat on hard, that one section. So I spent a good amount of time on that, but I think I can explain a decent strat, but it does take some practice. I didn't find any cheap exploits for the final boss. But yeah, this remake is cool. I mean, I'm not sure what it adds extra to the arcade version because I never got very far in the arcade version. I tried it on MAME, which is the arcade emulator, obviously, and I didn't play it for that long because after a few deaths, I think I ran out of continues. I think it only gave me a few continues, so I didn't really feel like trying to memorize the whole game. I'd have to save state, practice the entire game section by section, which is what I do for really hard games. But I wasn't, you know, enjoying the game that much to where I liked it enough to want to like be that committed to it. So I don't know if I'll ever go through that version. But it was cool to play this version with unlimited continues at least, and I'm not sure what else they changed. But it's very simple. You know, you have your jump, which now you can control your jumps in midair. I don't know if you could in the arcade version, but you definitely can here. You know, of course, in the NES games, once you launch your jump, it's committed. You can't adjust your jumping while you can't move in the air. So you do have like the ability to move around when you jump, which makes it a lot easier. And you have your jump and your whip, and that's it. You can't whip in any directions except straight forward, so that's it. And whenever you get a blue orb, you'll upgrade your whip to the next whip upgrade. They may get a little bit longer, I'm not sure, but I think it does more damage when it's fully upgraded. But I'm not sure exactly how that works. I just got them when they were available. When you whip this thing enough times, it turns into a stairs for you to climb up. But yeah, that's about it. You got your whip upgrades and you got your sub-weapons. So you got axes and things like that. And when you pick up a sub-weapon, your ammo is the hearts that you grab. So that'll be your ammo. And if you want to use a sub-weapon, you press up and attack. Just like the NES games. So that's it. There are some hidden turkeys in the walls and shit, wall meat, which will give you your health back. But I don't know if I found any of them in my playthrough, but they do exist. And, you know, I would recommend if you're actually trying to beat the game, obviously, on a 1cc run or something like that, then you would want to know where all the wall meat is located, obviously, because, you know, you don't really want to die on a 1cc run or a no-death run. So for that, I would recommend, you know, watching a video to see where they're located at. Check a no-death run or something like that. But it should be very easy, and if you're an experienced player of these types of games or the Castlevania games, then you won't need this tutorial at all. You know, it's not going to really do much. It shouldn't be much of a problem. You really don't have to play that clean to beat this game. But there'll probably be a few tricks that may make some parts easier if some players are struggling with certain parts. This game is kind of hidden away because it's only available on the Castlevania Dominus collection. You know, it's a compilation of mostly Metroidvania-style Castlevania games, but it's on there. And they also have the original Japanese version, which is the arcade version that's much harder than this. So that is an option. If you don't want to play it on MAME, you can play that on this collection, which is cool. For this guy, I mean, I pretty much just improvised. I got almost no practice because I beat it within maybe 2 tries or something like that. I might have beat it on my second try because you get a checkpoint right at the boss, and I think on my second try I had a full health bar. So I probably beat it on my second try and just bullshitted my way through. You're just trying to hit the head when it's within range, but aside from that, I don't have any good tips for this. This was really sloppy. If you have any sub-weapons, you know, you can get a little extra damage, but this might have been the one of my deaths. But, you know, this went down pretty quick. Because you get a checkpoint right here, as you can see. You know, even if you waste all your lives, you will continue on the last checkpoint. And a lot of times with the bosses, you can be super aggressive and sloppy and beat a lot of the bosses as long as you're landing attacks. You know, but the final form of the final boss is one of the exceptions. Like that one you really need to learn. But you don't have to master it. You just have to be able to dodge a few of its attacks and be consistent with landing your attacks, and you'll be able to beat it. But it's still tough. On hard mode, the final form of the final boss attacks pretty damn aggressively. One attack after another, you know, you got to be really quick to react to all the different patterns. But you won't have to dodge everything perfectly, though, just as long as you land your hits. So yeah, that's another stage down. It's really not that many stages. It's a pretty short game. Here you either want to duck or jump, depending, you know, which way the axe is coming. If it's coming from the lower position, you'll jump it, and if it's high, just duck, and that's it. Just keep attacking. Aside from that, watch out for these chandeliers that fall down on you. I got hit by them a bunch of times because I really wasn't looking at the top of the screen for some reason. I just wasn't really focused on it. It kind of blended into the background, and it didn't really stand out to me. You know, I wasn't really looking for them, but so I'm going to get hit by them a lot, as you can see. I should have been paying attention to the top of the screen a little bit more, but this was pretty fucking sloppy. But I mean, like you see, I did bullshit my way through here. It's not like Castlevania for NES where you get hit and you take like 2 or 4 pieces of. I think Castlevania 3 maybe you take 4 pieces of damage each time you get hit or some crazy shit. But it's been a while. But nothing like that. You take minimal damage in this game, so you know you can fuck around a little bit. As long as you get to the next screen, you'll be all right. You'll get your checkpoint. And then you can even commit suicide if you want. If you think it's a checkpoint, the game doesn't tell you where the checkpoints are, but you can usually tell by the new transition of a different screen or a different background. So, you know, you could just commit suicide if you think you got a checkpoint. You probably did. So you may want to remove some of these enemies before you jump to the next little chandelier here. That skeleton would be good to get rid of before jumping across. There is knockback, of course, in this game, as you just saw, where you get knocked back when you get hit, and you get brief invincibility afterwards. I don't think it lasts very long. But the thing with knockback in this game, it's not a huge deal, because if you fall in a hole in this game, it's not even instant death like it should be. If you fall in a hole, it's just you lose a decent little chunk of your health, but you can still survive. You'll respawn nearby, and then you can continue. So it's not even punishing on hard mode, you know, with that. It's the same thing as normal. You lose some of your health, but it's not a huge deal. Now, if you keep falling in the hole, obviously, then you're going to drain all your health. But, you know, if you have a few pitfalls, you know, here and there, you can still bullshit your way through. It's not too critical. And, you know, as goes with most of my playthroughs, I just do what I need to do to beat the games. You know, I play through a huge volume of games, but as a result, you know, some of them are really sloppy. It's just whatever fucking worked, pretty much. And most of my tutorials are like that. It's just whatever the hell fucking worked at the time. That'll be what I comment over. So, you know, I didn't go back and play this one. Now, for some of the harder ones, sometimes I'd go back and play parts. Or Ninja Gaiden 3, I did the whole game with no damage, section by section with save states. You know, not as a single run or anything. But Ninja Gaiden 3 for NES was a very difficult game overall, and I thought it was cool to demonstrate every section without taking damage, you know, so I did that for the tutorial as a little special bonus. You know, I wanted to give that game a little extra attention because it was really challenging, and it's one of the better NES games. It's a great fucking game. It's pretty fucking hard, but it's great. I thought it was definitely difficult enough to give it a good tutorial. But most games, I don't go and refine parts or sections or anything like that. You can take a few different paths here, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, either way you'll learn whatever you need to do to get through these little paths. There's nothing too complicated going on here. This is where the game starts having longer, more complicated stretches and stuff like that. But, you know, if you take your time and clear shit out, it's really not anything too bad. I mean, I'm probably going to die here. This might have been the first time I got here. But I think you'll see me play better on my successful attempt. See, this was just a sloppy first time fucking around, but I should do a little bit better on my successful attempt. You can see when you continue, you just go back to the checkpoint, like I said. You're not going to get sent back to the beginning of the game. There's no number on the continues or anything. You know, it's just you can continue as much as you want. Now, I don't know if the game saves or anything like that because I never exited the game on normal or hard. I just sat through, you know, and beat both of them back to back. So I didn't try to exit and see if it would save my game. So I can't actually comment on that. You'll have to test that out for yourself if you want to. But it's kind of a waste of time. I mean, if you have the time, you might as well sit through and just beat it. You know, now if the game is going to give you a lot of a challenge, then it may take you several hours. And then in that case, you might want to just get to the first checkpoint on stage 1 and exit out of the game and see if it saves. But I have a feeling that it's not going to save because I didn't see like anything really in the menu that looked like you could continue or anything. But maybe it does. I really didn't check. But yeah, you can see I'm playing cleaner now at this point. I mean, not great or anything, but at least I'm not fucking getting hit by every single fucking thing. So you can drop down on that stair, just drop straight down when you have a little bit of space, and then you can get through there pretty easily. You want to kill these fucking asshole guys with the wings because they take 3 hits to kill. Now, if you have a powered up whip or some sub-weapons, maybe they take less, I'm not sure. But they usually take me 3 whips to kill. It's good to get rid of them because they will keep following you and throwing shit at you. I got a turkey somehow. I don't even know where the fuck that came from. But, you know, if you want to know, just rewind and you'll probably see where it came from if you scroll back on the video a little bit. You can see these checkpoints are getting kind of long now. They're getting a little challenging, but not really because there's not really any holes to fall in. And a lot of times you can tank the hits and use your temporary invincibility to just walk through the enemies, as you see me doing. Like I said, I'm just trying to pull bullshit. I'm not concerned with it being clean or whatever. You know, I try to play well, but my first time through an area or even my second time, if I can pull some bullshit, I may try to skip enemies by taking the damage if the game is that forgiving. So this time I die on the boss because this was my first time getting to it. And you can see I almost, you know, got it on my first try. I wasn't that far off, but it's very easy. And I didn't even have a lot of health when I got here, and I almost beat it on my first try. I mean, it was easy. So now you're going to start at this boss with full health, and it should be very fucking easy. Because you don't really have to dodge well at all. You can just tank the hits. As long as you're landing your shots on that blue part on his chest, just keep whipping it. Keep jumping and whipping if you need to, and just keep hitting it. As long as you're damaging it consistently, there's really no challenge. I wasn't even trying to dodge, as you can see. I was just going for jump and whip. Because I figured, you know, I pretty much did that the first time I got to it and almost beat it. And I didn't even have full health, so I knew that I would be able to pull it off. I dodged that, but that was just luck. I didn't even know he was going to do these attacks, you know. I didn't know his patterns or anything, but I didn't need to. See how easy it is. Hard mode doesn't change much. It's a lazy difficulty setting. It just, you know, it makes more enemies and more aggressive and stuff like that, I think. But you don't take more damage or anything. And you can still fall in the holes. So now there's only a few stages left. I think there's only 6 stages. So the mummies take maybe 3 whips to take out. It's good to kill them sometimes if they're in your way, or if they're following you for too long, because they may catch up to you eventually if you're at a dead end. But some of them you can ignore. The torch is kind of similar to holy water in the NES games, where you throw it and it just kind of leaves an area of effect damage on the ground for a little while that lingers. But I never really intentionally tried to get it. I didn't really use sub-weapons much at all, except to hit stuff that's out of reach. Like the axes, I think, are good. Because sometimes enemies are out of reach and the axe has a little bit of an arc. So if there's any sub-weapons that might be useful, it might be the axe for hitting some of the enemies. But I didn't find them super useful. I mean, the game was just so fucking easy for a Castlevania game. You have to make your own challenge with this game, pretty much. I don't think a no-death run would give me that much trouble for this game because, you know, I would find where all the wall meat is. I would just have to practice the bosses more and, you know, refine some of the sections a little bit better, but, you know, I don't think this game will offer a lot of challenge, even if you put special requirements on the game. You know, if you're experienced with these type of games anyway. I mean, you can see how sloppy this shit is. Frankenstein is coming up soon, and you can be really aggressive with that boss. I think this boss might be the Stone Golem, but I don't remember exactly. I think it is. The Stone Golem is one of the only bosses where you actually have to try to play well and dodge shit. But it's a very simple pattern. It's just, you actually have to pay attention to it a little bit. You know, that and the final form of the final boss. Now you can see on hard it does get a little aggressive with all the bats and enemies and shit like that, but you know, you really don't have to play that well with all the damage you can take. I mean, you know, you don't want to play super shitty, but you don't have to play that well. Once you take the top head off, you can just jump over it and walk. The cross is a good sub-weapon because it pretty much clears out all the enemies on screen. I'm not sure if it does much with bosses, though, but most of the time when I got to a boss, I would die on my first time getting there anyway because I wouldn't even have all my health. I didn't usually find the wall meat. I'm sure it's around somewhere, but usually when I got to the bosses, my health was pretty low. So you may want to clear out some of these heads and other shit first. You know, don't do that. This might be where I lost my my life. I don't think I made it through this time. But with a full health bar, this section wasn't bad. Maybe I did. I'm not sure if this was the next checkpoint. Okay, looks like I died. I don't know if I don't think that was the checkpoint. No, see, I got to start back here, but it's not that far back. It's just I didn't have a lot of health when I got here, so now it's pretty easy. I mean, you can take plenty of hits with the life bar they give you. It does help to clear out some of those skulls first before you move up. The last skull, I don't really think you need to clear out because you can kind of go around it, but the other ones are probably good to kill. Because you see, they'll keep knocking you off, which is annoying. Just watch out for those bones, too, if you can, but it helps to remember what's coming. I was playing sloppy, but if I would have remembered that ghost, you know, I could have cleared it out, but I think the ghosts take 2 whips usually, and the mummies take 3, but it may depend how powered up your whip is as well. I'm not sure if the power-ups give your whip more range or damage or both. I'm not really sure. So here's the Rock Golem boss. So this boss is really specific. You just have to pretty much do what they want you to do in order. So when he pounds his fist down, you're going to climb up on his hand and whip him in the head. So you'll see that in a little bit. Just either jump that or stay away from those rocks that he shoots out. When he does his uppercut, just dodge it and then get on his hand. But you got to then jump and whip his head really fast. So when you get cornered, that's dangerous. But if you can get up on his hand, I think I die. I think this is the sloppy, you know, first attempt on hard. So this is probably where I died. But this is the basic idea. You jump on his hand, whip him in the head, and then whip him in the chest a few times. But now you'll see me actually beat it. The first time is usually really sloppy. I wanted to show that, though, because I think it's important to show the transitions on the checkpoints to see how the game punishes the player, I think is useful. A lot of videos don't show that, and a lot of times when I'm looking for games to work on, that's the first thing I'm looking for, is how the game, you know, do I have to memorize the whole game, or, you know, how does it work? So when he does that, you can jump that wave that goes across the screen. You don't have to get hit by it. You just have to jump at, you know, jump at the right time, pretty much. But the time to attack is when he slams his fist down. That's when you get on his hand, jump up and whip him in the head, and then maybe duck and whip twice to his chest. If you're not ducking, the whip will miss him. The hitbox is really specific on the weak point. The weak point is obviously that red gem, but it moves from his head to his chest. So when you hit it, it's going to move down. And then you want to duck and whip twice. And as long as you keep doing that, you know, you don't have to play that well. It's quite a simple boss. It repeats the same shit again and again, so it wouldn't really be that hard to beat it without taking damage. Because all of its attacks are pretty predictable and slow, so... After this, there's only 2 more stages left, and the only real challenge you're going to face, most likely, is the final form of the final boss. You know, I don't think, you know, most players are going to have too much trouble with the rest of the game. It may take a few hours to beat the game, but that really is, even if it takes you 3 hours to beat this game on normal, it's still a lot faster than it's probably going to take you to beat Castlevania, you know, 1 for NES, or Castlevania 3, which took me a while. And it's going to take players that are less experienced a lot longer than it took me, so I think this game is not going to be that bad for most players of old 2D games. So now we have an elevator sequence, which is really not too hard. You know, you get a checkpoint pretty soon. I mean, it's not like you have to be on here for an hour and a half, you know? It's not too bad. You can kind of just tank the damage a little bit, fuck around. You know? Maybe drink a few tequilas in the meantime, you know, just like set the controller down, just take a little fucking piss break, you know? Maybe take a shit, you know? It just depends on your mood, you know? Kind of just depends on what kind of mood you're in, but it'll be over soon enough, so we can shut this fucking game off soon, and believe me, it's going to be a fucking relief when we turn this shit off. Nah, I'm just joking, man. This is my favorite fucking game of all time. But it was cool to see another Castlevania game that I didn't really explore before. It was cool to play through this one, even though it's the worst game ever made, you know. I mean that in a good way, though. I'm not saying anything bad. So I may die at this checkpoint. You do get a checkpoint after you get off the elevator, so you don't have to worry about that too much. I think I'd probably die on this attempt. This was my first time getting here on hard, I think. So I'm probably going to fucking expire. Which, again, is either a good or bad thing, depending on if you like me or not, you know? I mean, you might want me to expire. But it just depends on how you look at it. I might want myself to expire, you know, but I can't really go into that on YouTube, you know? It's fucking illegal. So here I'm playing really fucking sloppy. I was like, fuck it, let me just try to ghost through the whole fucking level. I'll just go invincible and just walk through everyone. You know, the usual strategy. I usually start out playing really fucking sloppy, and then I'll be like, alright, fuck it, I'll actually try to dodge shit this time, maybe. I'm real fucking stubborn. I like to just try to bust through shit. Sometimes it works, though, so that's why I still do it. Really depends on the game and how lenient the game is, but so these crows are easy. If you just wait here, you can just turn to the left and just, you know, whip. There's a little bit of a rhythm to whipping all 3 of them, but it's very simple. And same thing with that crow. Let them come down to your left and then just whip them. You want to get rid of those fucking crows. They will irritate and follow you. And the skulls, you just whip them twice. I think you just whip them twice and they go away, so I'm not sure if it's the same one reappearing or if it's a different one. They do kind of fuck with you throughout the stage, but they're not super aggressive. But it is good to get rid of them. If they're starting to get close to you, I would kill them. Here I just decided to tank the hit and kind of walk through, but I still killed the asshole anyway. But if you want, like I said, once you kind of know the areas, you can kind of just take hits and walk through the enemies if you don't want to fight them. So for the armored guys, you could just take a hit and just walk through them if you want. And you'll probably still have plenty of health to get to the next checkpoint. Like I said, the game is so fucking forgiving. I still think it's kind of cool to make a tutorial on it because it's a cool game to kind of cover. I haven't made a tutorial in probably a few fucking months. I haven't really been doing them lately. I've been playing different shit. I've been playing more modern shit to catch up. And I was doing these extremely high volume months recently where I beat like 100 plus games in a month. And, most of those are not really worthy of being a tutorial. You know what I mean? Because a lot of them are easy to moderate, and a lot of them are not really worth giving tips on because you can just watch my video and see what I'm doing. And there's a lot of them that are really not worth a shit as far as challenge, so it varies. Usually for games that are kind of moderate to hard, I'll do a tutorial. This one, I would consider this easy for what kind of games I'm used to. So I wouldn't even consider this moderate, but it's going to vary on the player. But I figured fuck it. It is a game with a little bit of a challenge and some gameplay, and there was some interesting cheap techniques to do on some of the enemies and bosses. So for this Frankenstein, I just pretty much just keep whipping him and shit. I just pretty much ignore everything. I take the damage and just keep whipping him. It's not going to work on this first attempt because I didn't have full life, but you'll see once I have full life, it's very easy. Just keep whipping his ass, and as far as the little, midget guys, just try to whip them if they're in your way, but don't worry about them. Just focus on whipping Frankenstein. You'll probably beat it in the first try or something. It won't take you too long. Just be aggressive with, just keep whipping his fucking ass. If you want, you can whip the skeleton by the lever over there on the far right. See, when he cranks that lever, Frankenstein becomes invincible and will run through you and damage you. So if you don't want him to run through you like that, just whip the skeleton on the right. It will stop that attack from happening. So, see, I would go to the right and whip him, but I just didn't give a shit. I didn't even know that. I saw that in a video after I beat the game. So, I don't know if I would have actually utilized that. Because I really don't give a shit as long as I win. So I'm usually just super fucking aggressive. And if that doesn't work, I may settle down a little bit on my aggression, but I might try to dodge a little bit more, but I'll still be super aggressive. It takes like a lot of failed attempts before I start to tone down my aggressiveness. I'm usually fucking aggressive the whole time, and I'll make slight alterations until I win. So sometimes it takes me a while to beat shit because it's really not the best approach. So this part can be kind of tricky. But if you fall in the holes, you won't die, but you will lose a lot of life. You want to kind of whip as you're moving and take the enemies out. It helps if you know what's coming up. This is the biggest problem here, this guy with the triple shot. So I don't recommend killing him because I don't even know if you can, but you want to kind of dodge, maybe take the hit, but just keep moving so you can get off those platforms in time. Just focus on moving to the left. Just keep moving. Even if you get hit, just keep moving to the left and jumping. And eventually you'll have a big enough gap to where you're not getting hit, and you have enough time to get up to the other side. And then that's pretty much it. You can get through it just by luck eventually. If you keep moving to the left, you'll eventually be able to force your way through. That's mainly what I did. And right after this is the final boss, the first form of the final boss. So it's a pretty fucking short game. So I do recommend checking it out if you're looking for a fun game to play through. I wouldn't pick up the collection for it. I don't think it's worth picking up the whole collection for it. But if you're playing it on emulation, then it's no loss. So once you get through here, now you're on the final boss. Now the first form, you're going to see me die because I don't have any health. But after that, the first form is very, very fucking easy. I wasn't even dodging the first form. Now if you want, you can duck under the knives if you're really close to them for some of the knife attacks. But the ones that are like pointing at you, you have to like move all the way to the other side and then jump them as they come at you. But I don't do any of that shit, as you'll see. I just tank the hits. And then once you get to the second form, you get a checkpoint. So that's why I didn't give a shit. So the idea for me was to just whip him 3 times every time he appears. So you do have to time it kind of good because you don't want to whip too early and then you might miss one of your whips. You want to wait till he fully appears before you do your first whip, like that. And then you can get in 3 whips. You'll take a hit or 2, but you'll get in three damage points every time. So you're gonna damage him more than he damages you. That was the idea. That's all I was going for. So now I will die on the final form of the boss, the second form. And then we'll see how to properly do it. Now this guy, it can be quite... This is the part that probably took me like 20 minutes on hard. So it's tough. The idea is you want to whip that orb that's moving around. That orb that's floating around is what you're going to be whipping. And you can't let the orb touch you because it will damage you as well. And the left and right heads will damage you if you touch their nose or whatever. But every time that orb goes to either the left extreme or the right extreme, you want to get in a whip shot. See, every time it's on that other side, I'm trying to get that whip shot. And I'm not really worried too much about taking damage, but I did learn how to dodge a few of the attacks. That's why I'm actually dodging shit now, and that's when I did well. For the laser, you just duck. For these flames, you just move in the direction of the flames as they're moving. For the hands, you got to wait just to about to clap, and you got to jump over one of the hands to be able to get the clearance. For the bats, you just jump at the right time. You may be able to whip the bats, but I never tried it. But that's it. You have to know what to do for each pattern, and I just explained it, so that's what you got to do. But you got to be able to read it quick, you know what I mean? Which is going to take some practice, I think. But you can really get hit a lot and still win, but it was still like you do have to be able to dodge at least a few of the attacks. Because even if you're whipping, even if you're landing all your whips every time the ball goes to the left or the right, the orb, you're still going to get out damaged if you're getting hit by too many of the attacks. So you do got to learn to dodge a few of them. You don't have to dodge them like every time the attacks come out, but you got to you want to at least dodge a few of the attacks successfully to be able to win, as long as you're landing your whips. Now, if you're not landing the attacks on the orb every time they go to the left or right side, then you're missing out on damage, and then you're probably gonna have to dodge a lot more attacks to win. So that's gonna depend how many of the hits that you're actually landing on the orb. But yeah, that's about it. You just have to be able to read the attacks. You'll get used to them after a while, but they come out so fast on hard, it's hard to dodge everything. That would take me a lot of practice to really perfect that boss, but luckily you don't need to. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.